Now we're pleased to welcome Dianne Bischoff James, who's an award-winning author, and her book is The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. There are huge life-changing events that you detail in your book, Dianne. Welcome to Chat with Women.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here.
Well,
and I love Michael, too, by the way.
Thank
He's
you,
already got a
Dianne.
fan club now.
I tell you, Michael's got his own.
Wow.
Well, Dianne, in The Real Brass Ring, what were they and how did you handle the fear factor?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about the
Sure.
background.
Go
I
ahead.
was like the eternal soldier. I followed all of the rules. You know, that prescription you're supposed to do to get the American dream. I was told you got to get the big education, so I have a marketing degree from Northwestern, and you have to follow 4 different careers. I was told I could be like a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or an engineer, and I kind of did a one-off. I became a marketing consultant with engineering companies, and then I was told you got to get all the big house and the possessions, and you got to make sure you have the Prada bag. You know how that goes.
Uh-huh.
And so I did all that. I got the mini mansion across from the lake in Chicago, and then I was told I had to have kids by a certain age. So I followed every rule in the book, and I was told, and therefore you'll be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened instead, on my 38th birthday, I decided to give myself a little gift, and I went to see Sonia Choquette. She's an internationally known psychic and healer and visionary. And for 1 hour, I sat in her office, and she completely undressed me.
Okay, now what does that mean? Undressed you?
Yeah,
What
this is
it
a family
means
show
is
here.
that, everyone's listening to that one. She took every single thing that I had been doing in my life and cut it down, cut it apart, and said I was this unlit Christmas tree.
Wow.
That everything I had done in my life was wrong.
Oh.
And it was following somebody else's desire, you know, that of your parents, all those messages that we heard growing up. And she said, nothing about your life is your own. And you better hurry up and grab at the real brass ring, or pretty soon it's going to be too late.
Did you, when she said that to you, Dianne, did it resonate?
Right.
You know, or did you go, how dare you say I'm not?
Or no, did you go, well, wait a minute, I am happy. I mean, come on, you know.
Well, I was doing the stuff, but I was 190 pounds. I was taking Prozac every single day, so clearly I wasn't very happy.
No.
I felt like I had this dark cloud over my head all the time.
Oh, my
and the only
gosh.
thing I loved probably was Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and cupcakes. So
Well, then this
the
was
relationship was kind of hollow. So everything she was
Wow.
bringing up to me about every facet of my life was accurate, but it was really hard because, you know, she's the messenger. So, of course, I wanted to beat her up first, and then I wanted to just cry my eyes out second. I couldn't decide which one I wanted to do. So it was a tough message to hear.
So what did you do with that message? So now you've been told, and you obviously you have to know if you're 190 pounds and you love Twinkies and you're on Prozac, you know you have to look in the mirror and go, what's wrong with this picture, right? I mean, this isn't good. So how do you leave that office and go home? And obviously you wrote this book, but go home and change your life, because I want to hear how you changed your life.
I want to know what you did to change your life.
And how long did it take you? Was it a month or 2 years?
How do you give up all those material things?
The Prada bag.
Well, the house, you know. I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Come on, Dianne, get into it.
Well, the hard thing is to give up the things that you do love, like little red convertible and all that. But what I ended up doing is, at first I was in, post-traumatic shock, because it wasn't like someone said, oh, get a new job or lose 5 pounds.
No.
It was like, you don't have the right relationship, you're not at the right location, you have the wrong job, wrong career. She said I was supposed to be a teacher, a healer, an actor, and an author, and she said, don't even come back here. Don't even think of coming back here until you've written every day and you've finished your first book.
Oh, my gosh.
I didn't know what she was talking about.
But she gave you direction. I mean, yeah, sure, you don't know what you're saying. How do I get started?
Well, how do you write a book when you don't even know?
Sure.
So, okay, how long did it take you to start all this?
Well, I took about a couple months I was in shock, and then after that I decided to get going. So I started doing research, and I started looking into everything that she had talked about, and I mostly realized that I was really wounded on the inside. I had maybe self-love meter of about zero. So I had to go and kind of reboot myself because clearly my messages were completely way off and messed up about myself.
Right.
And I was terrified. I mean, the number one step is to have the courage to not only address the issues and to look at what's going on, but I marched myself off to a place called Hoffman Institute, and that's not too far from you. It's in the wine country in California. But they kind of scrub you up emotionally, and they get rid of all those bad messages, and I came back this like brand new spanking baby, and I realized that I needed to make everything she said true. Wow. So I started just living it. Everything I was afraid of, I put my boots in the right direction. I started auditioning for plays. I started a community theater, so baby steps first. I found that, I was terrified because I was also grossly overweight, and, actors aren't big girls,
Not
At
usually.
least I told myself that.
Right.
And I decided it didn't matter. When I finally found the self-love, having gone to this program, I decided to show up anyway.
I love that.
Most of the change had to do with the fact that I was fearlessly going to go after these brass rings and take any opportunity that came up. And I also had to, do a lot with self-discipline. I had to keep putting my boots in the right direction. I started auditioning for plays. I was so lucky. I was cast in my huge first role. I was cast as Townsperson 1 in the play of Oliver.
Oh, that's
That
funny.
was it. And I thought, oh my God, I've just won an Oscar. That was huge because I hadn't acted since high school. So it was a big deal for me. I had to go back and put my feet on the street and do all the work. And then I started sitting down, and she said, well, write a book. And I thought I was going to write a marketing book because I was this marketing professional. I had all these clients. And every time I sat down, this other story just kept oozing from my hands. It was more as if my personal trials, tribulations, and all this raw, gut-wrenching kind of pain was coming out in the pages. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll get to the marketing book eventually, but in the meantime, I think I'm going to be writing a kind of a how-to and kind of sort of an eat, pray, love kind of book. And it just started pouring out of me. So a lot of it was having having my heart in the right direction, so dealing with my emotions. A lot of it was dealing with my spirituality. Who was I as a person? What was my life purpose and my life track? And I had to figure all that out. And I started doing the most important part, which is the implementing and the action and doing all those action plans. Now, it did take me a long time. You've asked me a couple times how long. It took me 10 years to lose 55 pounds. I'm now a SAG actor. I wrote the book, and we just were picked up as one of the top 10 inspirational books for 2015 by Aspire magazine.
Congratulations.
So I'm really thrilled.
That's fabulous.
Well, I changed my relationship, too, and everybody's much happier on the other side.
Well, Dianne, we're going to need to take a break. When we get back, I want to find out, because this is great. Now, give us some shortcuts of living well. I want to do that because I think right now holidays can be very stressful, and a lot of people look in the mirror and aren't happy with what they see. And I don't mean rather they're overweight or underweight. I'm talking about who they are and the struggles to be the authentic person they want to be.
And this seems around the time that it comes out.
It does, because you're like, well, this isn't what I thought, and especially New Year's. Right. Oh, my God. We're like, we got to set our goals and all that. So we are chatting today with Dianne, who wrote the book, The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some shortcuts to living well.
Sure, I want to buy these shoes for my mama, please.
Oh, I'm all verklempt.
No.
Sorry.
And you expect me to bring everything back?
I
Sure,
try.
Benny.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
a lot. Welcome back. You're listening to Chat with Women, and I'm Rochelle.
And I'm Pam.
I'm verklempt over the song, and I'm energized over who we're chatting
Michael.
with. Oh, Michael. I adore
Oh, you're
Michael.
back. We're back with Dianne. We're energized.
We are joined today by Dianne Bischoff James, who has written The Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. Welcome back, Dianne.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm your second biggest fan, by the way, after Michael. I'm just going to get in line behind him.
Well, we'll sing happy birthday to you, Dianne. You call us when it's your birthday, and we'll make sure we do that for you. So, Dianne, before we took a break, we wanted to mention, because in your book, you include a list of shortcuts for living well. Let's discuss this. What are these shortcuts?
Well, I have 14 rules that I put together. As a business executive, I wanted to know, what's the bottom line? Tell me what I need to know so I can just move forward and create a better life.
Right.
And so I put together 14 rules. I mean, I've read every book known to man, every self-help book, every philosophy book, every metaphysical book, and I decided, okay, I think I can cut through all this and put together a simple set of rules so I can change my life. And there's 14 of them, and I'll go through some of the key highlight ones, the ones that I found to be the most helpful. And one, for example, is called, what you think about, you bring about. It's the basics. It's what we've been talking about, since the power of positive thinking. But everything you think about, talk about, mull over, complain about, even possibly dream about is coming your way. So in any way possible, I started to change my thinking because I had terrible stinking thinking. I was trained in the art of disaster talk. I mean, I used to know everything about what was bad, like if you're going to go outside, it's like, oh, be careful, oh, have a safe trip. And I used to actually think to myself, I mean, what's going to happen to me on my trip? Am I going to get in an accident? Is a plane going to crash? I never knew what they were talking about, but I had learned to talk that way. So I started getting, I put a band around my wrist and I started snapping it every time I would say something that was negative or something I didn't want. And I had to be very, very mindful. And I had a bruise on my wrist for about a month after snapping away. But eventually I learned to actually focus on really calling in things that I was looking for. And that's a very, very helpful one. And you really need to mind your words because your words are the very first step of manifesting anything. And so once you put it out there, and so it is. So when my kids go, oh, I'm going to be sick, I said, there it is, right there. You're there tomorrow. You're staying home. So it's like, create what you want. No, I think she wanted to be sick, so I'm not sure. No,
that's great advice. It is. It's great advice.
Well, and we hear this all the time when we do interviews. But the problem always is that the power of change is difficult. So how do you stop that negative thinking? Because it feeds us. We get into this negative mode because it feels good at the time, right? So how did you stop yourself other than snapping your wrist?
I love the snapping.
I mean, maybe that's the answer.
Well, the other part, and this ties into one of the other rules, is about using your emotional radar detector. I was so used to stuffing. Not only did I stuff my face and stuff my body, but I stuffed my emotions. Right. And everything I used to feel, I think I was trained in one of those, again, kind of a strict household. And it didn't really matter how we felt about anything. We had to follow the rules. So I had to really become super aware of, that feeling inside. Now, we all call it something different. I call it my crunchies. Right. When those crunchies start to twist right in my gut, I used to ignore it and think it was me or something was wrong with me. Now, I honor it, I pay attention, and here's the funny thing. When you do speak of things that are negative, it's weird. It doesn't feel good.
No,
if you
you're
really
right.
pay attention to it.
No.
Have you ever noticed you kind of go down a little bit of a spiral with someone when you're complaining about, oh, that woman, can you believe what she said? Oh, she wasn't dressed well. You don't feel good about yourself. You actually feel kind of catty and nasty. That's why I love hearing you ladies, because you're so positive and upbeat. It just makes me smile. And so I started really paying attention to the emotions and where they were and making sure that resonance with whatever was coming across was on positive. Which kind of leads to another one of the rules, which is to really watch your wave. Everybody has, we're all beings of light. Everything's made of waves. Nothing is stationary. And there's two sides. There's the dark side, and then there's the more positive, uplifting side. So I started being very careful about making sure the thoughts that I had were reaching towards that uplifted, beautiful, positive, bright side. And it's funny how in any situation I could twist my thoughts to make me feel better. And that was one of the key tricks. There probably isn't a situation in the world you can think of that you couldn't think of one thought that made you feel better. Even if it's, okay, I have to do a proposal, I don't want to do this thing, but I think, wow, when this is done, I get to turn on Nashville and watch my little soap, my little evening soap opera. And that little thought of getting it done made me feel so much better that I'll just sit down and do the work so I can get to the reward or whatever it is that made me feel good at the time. So you really have to be careful of your thoughts. You have to be careful of the way you feel. And one of the key things is about speaking your piece, one of the other key rules. As a stuffer, I also was rarely able to speak exactly what I felt in a healthy way in the moment. And I think most of us, especially in this country, are so PC that we'll say anything to make somebody else feel good. Or, if you even get invited, they used to say, oh, will you buy magazines for the magazine drive? And I used to buy the magazines even though I don't even read them because everything's online. I don't know why there's still magazine drives, but where I'm at is a very compliant, kind of a high-end neighborhood, and everybody just does what they're told. And I finally said, I don't read magazines. I'm sorry, I'll have to contribute in a different way that works for me. So the most powerful words I've found is, that doesn't work for me. And people can't argue with you. And not only that, but they usually honor you and they want it to work for you. So it's very much about becoming aware, about honoring yourself, about feeling your feelings, and about speaking your piece.
Well, Dianne Bischoff James, you are absolutely inspirational. And boy, do we recommend your book, The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. What a great way to start the new year. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You're listening to Chat with Women on